but also different departments and their suppliers. So it's a really messy position at the moment.
Can I just follow that up very, very quickly? I'll give another angle, and that's the trust between a university and our sponsors. I've been nothing but impressed by the different sponsors that we've had. I think that they've not asked us to do anything wrong. They've not asked us to do anything in any way that has compromised us. But also, what I find quite interesting is that I find that they are nervous of universities, that they don't know what to ask for, how far they can go, and that leads, it can lead to a nice big contract where we don't have to do anything. But what that means is you don't get repeat business. So I think that we're very much at the beginnings of what could be a very fruitful relationship, but only if it's managed properly.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so Nicolas.
Can I just support very strongly what Tim was saying? I used to run a government department which had £400 million a year contract with EDS. And I think in addition to the points that Tim made, I'd want to make two others. First, I think that the Treasury's obsession with lowest price has done huge damage over the years. It's not just a question of paying peanuts and getting monkeys, but as part of the trust that Tim was mentioning, you've got to have contracts that genuinely offer win-win, so that, for example, efficiencies above a certain contracted level are shared 50-50. The second is, I think the government over the years has been extraordinarily short-sighted in getting the skills that it needs, with more and more outsourcing and contracting out in its various forms. They have been unbelievably sluggish in actually putting a premium on contract management and project management, which have become, in my view, the critical skills for public servants rather than the old traditional ones on which they still over-concentrate.
Thank you. Do you want?
I think that trust is key to all of this. Trust is what actually acts as the biggest brake on outsourcing. Because you can't trust someone, you won't outsource deals to them. Bringing it back to a very personal and human level. As a patent attorney, I work with other patent attorneys worldwide. But I don't work with just anyone. You don't just go on the internet and type in, I'd like to work with a patent attorney, who can I find? That won't work. It's the classic adage of, on the internet, nobody knows you're a dog. Well, it's perfectly true. Anyone can put up a website. The flashy website doesn't tell you anything. Key to all of this is the human relationship. And human relationships take time. It's no good merely doing good work for someone. You actually got to get to know them. And if we're talking in a globalized world, how you get to know someone can be very different if you're in Minneapolis or Osaka. And all of these human developments are absolutely key. How can you develop trust? Because without trust, that's the foundation for any outsourcing whatsoever.
Just a very small comment in response to both those was, I do think there may be a generational difference about trust. I think my teenage boys have a different concept of trust. Their relationships, they don't meet many of the people that they liaise with over World of Warcraft or these other virtual worlds. But they have trust in them because they've played the game with them for over a period of time. So I think trust is going to evolve in a very different way from the traditional, I've met you, I've worked with you. It may be a much more virtual relationship that generates that trust.
Can I just as a very, I wanted to pick up the point which was just made about 50-50 sharing and put it on a very personal level. I've been preaching the sort of gospel of gain sharing, which is where both sides benefit from a good and successful relationship, because you reinforce that with money. And I've been preaching that for a very long time. And we had a lady that helped take the kids to and from school. I don't glorify her in the name of a nanny. But the one problem was that she kept crashing the car. And she did this a lot. I mean, you know, in 6 times in 6 months starts to become a real problem. And so, you know, you have the usual classic marital row about, well, you know, grumble, grumble, it's my car, I spent a lot of money on it, sort of fire the woman, that sort of thing. And actually what my wife said to me is, you should practice what you preach. Why don't you give her a bonus if she doesn't crash it for the next 6 months? It works. Absolutely no problem whatsoever. Not even a huge amount of money, but it was worth doing. And actually this point about the Treasury, it's a very simple example, but the Treasury will focus on cost at the expense of value every single time and really causes a disaster. It's very difficult to say to people who are motivated by numbers and more, you know, more on the balance sheet than not, to actually explain this to them because they really don't understand it. So the more that we can explain that to people, frankly, the better.
But also, just one last point is that this is an argument about the Treasury that's been going on forever, right? 150 years, 50 years. I mean, you read about candle ends, counting candle ends. You know, it's the actual culture of the Treasury. You know, it's not any particular political party.
Can I just pick up on your bonus scheme? It makes me think of something which Stephen Levitt wrote about one of the dangers of incentives. One of the examples he gives in his book, Freakonomics, is the problem they had about fining people for turning up late to pick their kids up from nurseries. A lot of human relationships can't be reduced simply to money. As soon as you reduce it to money, it was, well, actually, if I'm a bit late, that's not a bad rate for babysitting, so I'll do that anyway. What they did was they did a scheme whereby they introduced this fine, and actually the number of times people turned up late went up, and then they removed the fine afterwards, and it got even worse, just because they'd broken down trust. Fundamentally, trust is a human thing, and it's a human relationship which counts.
Right, well, I think, are there any last final questions? I think what that single question has actually produced has been a fascinating and really positive discussion about what makes the world work, or what stops it working as effectively as it might. I think I shall like to conclude by thanking all our speakers for providing this. I think they'll be around for coffee afterwards. You're probably ready for a cup of coffee by now, so you can come and chat to them individually if you'd like to do. And the reason that medieval kings didn't manage to look after the borders properly was because they were not actually trusting enough to give the barons on the borders enough power. Because their fear was, if you built up the barons with enough power to defend the Scottish borders, you would have got a rather overmighty tyrant in your backyard. Thank you all very much.